Bonne soirée à tous. Welcome, everyone, to this online hearing of the Committee of Adjustment for the City of Ottawa. Committee of Adjustment is a quasi-judicial tribunal that's appointed by City Council to make decisions on certain types of applications under the Planning Act, most notably consents and minor variances, but sometimes permissions and other more rarer types of applications, frankly. So my name is Anne Tremblay. I'll be your chair for this evening. With me also this evening is Ms. Julia Markovich and Mr. Scott Hindle. We have quorum. There's 3 of us this evening. Normally we have a panel of 5, but given the summer holidays, we tend to be a little thinner over the course of the summer. So just take note that this hearing is being video conferenced and live streamed on YouTube. Now, if you'd like to see this, it is archived. You can simply go to the city's website later and have a look at it and watch it again if you'd like, or if somebody's missed it, you can do that. And of course, you can always access the agenda for this evening as well. That's also on the city's website. I'd like to just recognize a few people that are with us this evening that make this all happen. Whether it's online or it's in person. I'd like to recognize the Deputy Secretary Treasurer, Ms. Warna Brenning, with us this evening, Ms. Cheryl Williams, Ms. Emily Manette, and Ms. Mandy Nguyen. These are our coordinators, and they help us get through the evening quite well, I will tell you. We're pretty, we have a very good staff, so very pleased with how our hearings run. So with that, before we get into the agenda, I just have a few instructions or comments to make. So the first is that our mandate is actually fairly narrow. So the Committee of Adjustment can't hear a number of things that may be of concern, but is not, if it's not related to the areas under the Planning Act for which we can make decisions, there really isn't anything that we can do. So for example, we can't actually address any of the aspects of a proposal that's actually not part of the application. So for example, if the proposal happens to meet the height requirements and they don't need a minor variance for height requirements, then it's not an issue that this committee can deliberate on. We can also not make any deliberations on noise, pollution, or property maintenance or property values. Those are really outside of our jurisdiction. We also can't really entertain any comments about prosecution for illegal construction. We essentially deal with each application as if no construction has started. We will at no time allow any personal comments to be made about neighbors, applicants, agents. We would ask you to keep that in mind. And finally, we cannot proceed with an application if additional minor variances are required. There are some circumstances where we will hear an application if greater relief is required on a minor variance, but only if it's very negligible. If there's really an increase in the relief sought from the zoning bylaw, then we tend to adjourn and recirculate that application. So as part of the statutory notification requirements, each applicant is required to post a sign on their property and then to file with us a statutory declaration that all that's been done. Now, my understanding is there's no statutory declaration that has been filed in accordance with the requirements of the regulations. So we will do either a solemn oath or an affirmation with each one of the agents or applicants who we will be proceeding with for the hearing. So with that, I did mention we're just at quorum. If we have technological issues of any nature and that we have to, what we will try to do is simply pause the hearing so that we can reestablish quorum. And if we can't, then what we'll do is we'll simply step down the additional or unheard items to the very next meeting of the Committee of Adjustment. So in terms of the hearing process, so first thing we tend to do is, well, there's an agenda The committee does not always follow the order of the agenda. Those items are essentially listed in the order that they were received. Sometimes there are some issues or some applications that are fairly minor, and with those, it is helpful to simply hear those in advance of some more contentious applications. For this evening, I think we're going to proceed, once we get the adjournments done, I think we'll proceed pretty much in the order of the agenda. So we also have adopted sort of two ways to proceed. We can either fast track an application, which means that we will not require a presentation. What we will do, because the committee actually has looked at all of the information on file and has had an opportunity to ask questions of staff even before we get here, in order to better understand the nature of the application. Of course, no decisions made until we get squarely into this hearing and everybody who has an interest in the application gets heard. So with that, if we do a fast track, then we'll simply ask questions for clarification. If the application is more contentious, we will ask for a presentation. And after that, we will ask questions of the presenter, whether it's the applicant or the agent or the owner. And from there, we'll then go into after all of the questions have been asked and the committee has done their portion, we'll go into the public portion of the hearing on each application. And it's at that time that everybody will get an opportunity to come forward and to voice their concerns to the committee or to ask questions and get some answers to your questions. If there is a truly contentious item, we often get groups of neighbors who may come out. If that's the case, what we'd like to do is to be able to proceed first with someone who can act as the spokesperson. So if you have somebody in your group that you think can take on that role, that's certainly where the committee would like to start. And then we give a chance to everyone else to then add any additional items that they would want to add. Once all of that is done, and the committee may ask you, by the way, questions about your presentation as you proceed. But once we get all that done, we close the public hearing portion on that application, and then we deliberate further. We may ask further questions of the applicant, and then the committee can make a decision. When the committee makes a decision, there's a number of options that we have. We obviously can grant the applications. We can deny the applications. We can adjourn if we feel that for whatever reason that all parties would benefit from an adjournment. We can do that. Or we can reserve on an application. So if there's really a contentious issue and that we have a lot of new evidence that's brought forward to us as part of the oral submissions by the public, in those cases, we can reserve, which means that we simply, once we're done with our evening, the totality of the agenda, then the committee meets again and makes a decision before we go home tonight. So it's not as if you're going to wait a week, 2 weeks for that to happen. So that said, I think that pretty much, just in terms of the decisions, you can get an oral decision from us this evening, but what we need to do under the regulations of the Planning Act is to essentially issue within 10 days of the hearing a formal written decision outlining the panel's reasoning on the matter. And then, of course, if you're not content with the way the decision went, then you can appeal that decision to it's the Ontario Land Tribunal, now I think it's called, within a 20-day appeal period. And of course, there is a fee for that. So, all right, with that, we're going to go to items of business before we start. This either Ms. Markovich or Mr. Hindle have any declarations of conflict of interest. All right, so that said, we have no minutes that we can approve this evening. We'll leave that for the next meeting. And then finally, we're on to the adjournment requests. So we have a number of adjournments for tonight. So the first one I'd like to call up is 3000 Navan Road, and that would include the 6101 Renault Road and 2980, 3060, and 3080 Navan Road. So I think I'm looking for Mr. Church. Good evening.
Good evening, Madam Chair.
So, Mr. Church, you're aware that there's been an issue with the circulation of the application?
Yes, we were made aware of that earlier this week.
All right. And you're also aware that that action has already been taken to remedy that matter?
Yes, we are aware of that, and that our item has been, I believe it's been confirmed that it was adjourned to the next hearing date on September 1st. Is that correct?
Yes. Okay. Exactly where we're going with that.
Okay.
So, all right. Yes. So the proposal is to adjourn this application to September 1st. Any questions from either Ms. Markovich or Mr. Hindle? All right. With that, I do have to open it up to the public. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to speak either for or against an adjournment request on this application? Okay, I'm not seeing anyone, Mr. Church. So with that, we'll see you back in about 2 weeks.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Have a good night.
All right. You too. Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, so the next applications up for adjournment tonight is 248 Furland Street. And I think I'm looking for Mr. Hume. Good evening, Mr. Hume.
Good evening, Madam Chair.
So, Mr. Hume, you're aware that staff has requested an adjournment of this application in order to get, I think it looks like, additional information from you.
Yeah, so yes, Madam Chair, I'm aware of it, and we believe we've provided that information to staff, but we're supportive of an adjournment to the September 1st meeting because we haven't been able to convey that information to you and the committee at this time.
All right, thank you, Mr. Hume. Any questions for Mr. Hume from Ms. Markovich, Mr. Hindle? All right, I'm going to throw it open to the public. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to speak either for or against this adjournment request? All right, I'm not seeing anyone. So, Mr. Hume, we'll see you in a couple of weeks as well.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair.
September 1st. Thank you. Have a nice evening.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye now. Okay, we're on to application number 10, which is for 155 Britannia Road. I believe I'm looking for either Mr. Jackson or Ms. Blakely. Good evening, Ms. Blakely.
Good evening, Madam Chair.
All right, so our understanding is there is information lacking in order to truly be able to consider this application this evening. I understand there's an EIS report outstanding, as well as possible additional relief for height. You're aware?
Yes, Madam Chair, we're aware of the request from planning staff, and we do agree with the adjournment this evening. After further discussion with planning staff, we will be amending the minor variance application to seek an additional variance for height in relation to a front gable that projects out of the main roof. So that is underway. In terms of the EIS study, that was also brought to our attention earlier this week. And although in our view, the EIS might not be warranted in this context, the owners have commissioned the preparation of this by a biologist. So our intent is to resubmit the revised materials to committee as soon as possible. So I think, having said that, we would request that the applications be brought back to the earliest possible date that would allow for the recirculation and statutory requirements.
All right, so Ms. Blakely, a couple of things. So was there pre-consultation with staff on this, just as a start? Did you have a chance to meet?
Yes, we reached out in April. At that time, had pretty detailed discussions with staff by email and video call discussing some zoning interpretations and official plan matters. The EIS requirement wasn't raised at that time, so it's kind of new to us.
All right, so just in the planning report this time was the first that you've heard of it, is that correct?
That's correct.
All right, okay. We were actually going to be adjourning the sine die only because it sounds like there's more discussion required, Ms. Blakely, with planning staff about the environmental impact statement and about, well, I think the minor variance sounds like that you pretty much resolved that with them. So if there's and you're saying the EIS is already done, is that what you're telling me?
Yes, Madam Chair, that was our approach after more discussions with planning staff yesterday. In the interest of our client and keeping this moving forward, as I indicated, we pre-consulted in April, had a submissions for the minor variance in June. So our clients have been kind of eager to keep this moving forward as they also are going through the building permit process. So we have commissioned a biologist. They are preparing the EIS. So we hope that that will be completed in the next couple of days. So we can, perhaps our request would be the second hearing in September might be adequate.
Doesn't give you a lot of time. Ms. Ramirez, can I speak with you just for a moment, please?
Hello, Madam Chair.
Good evening, Ms. Ramirez. I'm just trying to wrap my mind around what would be required for this EIS, and I kind of need your insight on that. I am not sure exactly what the nature would be of the material that would need to be covered in it right now based on the subject property. So can you tell me, in your opinion, whether or not this is something that needs a 4-week or a 6-week window?
In speaking with the environmental planner, he has noted that he would, a scoped EIS is what would be required, and there are guidelines regarding that EIS and the nature of what needs to be included in there. For the building height, it just requires the recirculation. For the scoped EIS, it would require the submission and then the review by the environmental planner.
All right, so Ms. Ramirez, normally there's sort of the stage 1, and then if that first report finds something, there's a stage 2 that normally has to happen. Any indication that there might be that concern in this case?
In speaking with the environmental planner, the scoped nature of it doesn't seem, it seems to be that it would be quite straightforward.
All right, okay, thank you, Ms. Ramirez. In that case, I'm looking to my fellow panel members. I'm thinking September 15th.
Yeah, I would tend to agree, Madam Chair.
All right, Ms. Markovich as well, yeah. Sorry, you're in agreement? Okay. All right. Okay, before we actually make that decision, Ms. Blakely, got to go to the public. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to either speak for or against this adjournment request? I'm not seeing anybody come forward, but I did see that our Ms. Brenning has got on video. Ms. Brenning, is there something you'd like to add?
Yes, Madam Chair. If we are looking at the 15th, those materials will have to be submitted fairly soon to get on to the circulation, to get all the circulation materials we need to put that on for a hearing, if that's what the committee chooses. Thank you.
All right. So you know what? I'd rather not rush it. So I'm kind of thinking, Ms. Blakely, if that's the case, it sounds like even though your work will get done, there's still other work that needs to happen. So how about October 6th?
Yes, Madam Chair, I think that'd be reasonable. From our perspective, the additional variance doesn't require any changes to plans, kind of technical in nature, but considering the EIS, if that is the committee's preference, October, the first hearing on October is sufficient with us.
All right, any objections, Mr. Hindle, Ms. Markovich, to October 6th? All right, I'm going to call out to the audience again because it was an adjournment to the 15th. Has anybody got an issue with adjournment to the 6th of October? All right, I'm not seeing anyone. So all those in favor of the adjournment to October 6th? Yep. All right. So Ms. Blakely, we're unanimous. We're granting the adjournment and we will see you in about a month and a half. We'll
Excellent.
see you then.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right. Thanks. Have a nice evening.
You too.
Okay, so that takes us to our applications to be heard this evening. So we're going to go to number 306 Montfort Street, and I'm looking for Mr. Eady. Do we have Mr. Eady with us? Ms. Nguyen?
Yes, he's in the participants now.
Okay.
Good evening, Madam Chair. It's Russell Gibson for the applicant in place of Mr. Eady. Good evening.
All right. All right. So good evening, Mr. Gibson. Can you just confirm for me though, please, your municipal address? Give me your work address since you're acting as agent.
It's Suite 1520, 360 Albert Street in Ottawa, Constitution Square.
All right.
K1. Okay, thank you.
No, go ahead. If you, the postal code is always good.
K1K7X7.
All right. Thank you. All right. So I do need to read something to you. There's no sworn declaration on, or no statutory declaration on file. So I'm going to read something to you. I'm going to need you to respond. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the notice provided to you as part of the application process and by the committee was A, posted on the property to which the application applies, 2, that it was there for the prescribed number of days before the hearing, and that finally it was clearly visible and legible for the entirety of that time? Do you either swear or affirm that to be true?
I do so swear.
All right, thank you. Okay, before we get into questions, a couple of housekeeping matters on the notice that we have to address. On the legal description, my understanding is that it should read lots 70 to 73, part of lots 104 and 105, registered plan 246. Do you agree?
I do. It should include part of lots 105, 104, and 105.
Yeah, okay, we've got that. And
Okay.
the second amendment to the notice that we are making actually has to do with the purpose of the application, which will now read: the owner wants to construct an unheated 520 square foot, 2-story addition to the front of the existing car repair garage. Is that correct?
That is correct. I confirm, Madam Chair.
All right, perfect. All right, with that, no presentation required from you, Mr. Gibson. Questions from either Mr. Hindle or Ms. Markovich? Nothing? All right, which means we can now go to the public portion. I have no one registered to speak on this application. However, I'm going to open it up to the audience. Is there anyone who's tuned in with us this evening who would like to speak to the application at 306 Montfort Street, whether it's in opposition or in support? Now's your chance. Just raise your hand. All right, I'm not seeing anybody come forward. Panel members, all those in favor of the application? All right, so with that, then, Mr. Gibson, the application for permission is granted. And I don't
Thank
believe
you.
there's anything else that we need to discuss. There's no conditions, there's nothing else. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good night.
All right, bye now. Okay, next application, number 4, which is for 3 Kane Terrace. I'm looking for Mr. Segreto.
Good morning, good afternoon. Good evening.
It's maybe even after supper, so maybe evening, Mr.
Evening.
Segreto. How are you this evening?
Long day, very good, long day.
Okay, all right, sounds like you've been to the committee before now today. So, All right, so Mr. Sagrano, before we get going, again, same thing with you, need to read the oath or solemn declaration. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the notice provided to you as part of the application process and by the committee was posted to the subject property to which the application applies for a prescribed number of days before the hearing, and that that sign was clearly visible and legible for the entirety of that time? Do you either swear or affirm that to be true?
I swear it to be true.
All right, thank you. Couple is, yeah, I think I see only one housekeeping change required to the notice. And so again, it's a legal description, and I think the reference is to Plan M-196. Do you agree?
Yes, I do.
All right, perfect. No presentation required from you this evening on this application. I'm going to throw it out to the committee members for questions. All right, pretty straightforward. Sunroom edition, so tends to be a little straightforward. So with that, then I have no one to speak on the speakers list, but I will open it up. Is there anyone in the audience who has an interest in this application and would like to speak to the panel either in support or in opposition to this application? Now's your chance. Just need to raise your hand. All right, I'm not seeing anyone. So with that then, members, all those in favor? All right, Mrs. Sagrano, for the record, the application is unanimously granted. There's no conditions, of course. So with that, thank you. And I think we're going to see you a little later this evening.
We will. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
All right, thank you. Okay, next application is number 7 and 8. It's for 76 Burnett's Grove Circle. I'm looking for Monsieur Lavoie. Mr. Lavoie, can you hear us? Can you unmute? And can you put your video on?
Yeah, I'm hearing you, but I don't see. Okay, start. Okay.
Ah, perfect. There you are. All right. So again, with you, no statutory declaration. So let me read something to you. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the notice provided to you as part of the application process and by the committee was A, posted on the property to which the application applies? Secondly, that it was there for the prescribed number of days before the hearing and that it was at all times legible and visible? Do you either swear or affirm that to be true?
I swear. Madam Chair.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Lavoie. Before we get into this, again, number of housekeeping amendments that we need to do to the notice. All right, so let me go through these and I'm going to need you to agree or disagree with me as I go. So legal description, we are adding after Plan M-195, Parts 7 and 12 on Plan 4R 30506. All right. To the to minor variance A for 76A Burnett's Grove Circle. We are amending the reduced lot width of 6.84 to 6.85. Is that correct?
That's right.
All right. And for B, we're amending the reduced lot area of 224.77 to 224.9 square meters.
That's right.
And for C, we actually have determined that you don't need minor variance C because you meet the lot area requirements. Or sorry, the lot area, the lot width requirements.
We need it for C 76B. Yeah, we need 6.8 meters.
All right, so I'm going to ask Ms. Cully to come forward, just so we can get some clarity on this.
Yeah.
Ms. Cully, I'd understood that we were deleting an amendment, or sorry, minor variance.
72.
Yeah, it's for you, Madam Chair. There's two reports. One is for 72.
Ah, yes, okay, yes. Thank you. Yeah. No, you're quite right. I've got them here. Okay, too much paperwork. So, Mr. Lavoie, then the C stands for 76 Burnett Grove Circle. And for D, we're amending the lot area from 224.79 to 224.8 square meters, correct?
Yes, correct.
Okay, so let's go to the 8 while we're at it. We're going to amend again the legal description to include parts 1, 2, and 10 on Plan 4R 30506, correct?
Right.
All right. Now we're deleting minor variance C regarding the reduced lot area, correct?
Yes, correct.
All right. Everything else stands?
Yes.
Ms. Cully, we're good. All right. So now we have we know exactly what we're dealing with in terms of notice requirements. So, okay, Mr. Lavoie, we're not asking for a presentation on this. So I'm going to open it up to the members of the committee for questions of clarification. Committee members, anything on this one? Nope, not seeing anyone. Yeah, I'm not seeing any questions on this one at all. So with that, I'm going to check and see whether or not we have. Okay, there's no one on my speakers list. So is there anyone in the audience who would like to speak either for or against the consent and the minor variance application? Either one, could be both, either one. Now's your chance. Okay, I'm not seeing anybody come forward. So hang on. It's not a consent, it's 2 minor variance applications. My apologies. My apologies. So it's 2 minor variance applications. And with that, then, I'm not seeing anyone come forward with any concerns. I guess the only question I had for you then, Mr. Lavoie, is can you confirm the status of the vacant parcel that's between the 2 lots, between 72 and 76?
Yes, it's a right of way owned by the city.
All right. Now, is it actually a developed right of way at this point? Is it paved? Is it?
No, it's in grass and 1 tree on it, and people use it for to pass, to walk on it, and right now they're walking all over the property on both 72 and 76. So they go from Maryville at the back, and they go through those lot and go to the subdivision in Burnett Grove Circle. So.
All right. Okay. Well, with that, then, I guess there's no concerns, no questions. So members of the committee, I'm going to call the vote on the minor variance for 76 Burnett's Grove Circle. So all those in favor of the minor variances for that application? All right. So that application is granted, Mr. Lavoie.
Thank you.
Looking for a vote on 72. All those in favor of the minor variances requested for that. All right, again, we've got approval across the board on this, Mr. Lavoie. So I don't see anything further here that we need to discuss, no conditions. So with that, thank you very much.
Thank you. Good
All
evening.
right, enjoy the rest of your evening.
Yes.
Okay, so we are going to hear 1934 Bellar Drive, and I'm looking for Mr. Mulholland. Good evening, Mr. Mulholland.
Good evening.
All right, so Mr. Mulholland, I understand that there was some concerns about the French notice in the hour that had been posted.
Yeah, my understanding is the letter that went out may have directed anyone to this morning's hearing as opposed to this evening's hearing. So hopefully, if they appeared there, they would have been redirected here. The sign that was posted on site does have the correct time, though, so anyone walking past the site would have had appropriate notification.
All right, and so Mr. Mulholland, what we asked staff is whether or not somebody did in fact come forward. If there had been anybody who had voiced an interest in the application, there was nothing. So it's on that basis that the committee has decided to hear this application. There are circumstances under which we would not waive the requirement for recirculation, but in this case, I think that it's minor enough. So with that though, before we get going into the application, do need to read something to you as well. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the notice provided to you as part of the application process and by the committee was first posted on the property to which the application applies, that it was posted for the requisite days, the prescribed number of days before the hearing, and that the sign was at all times visible and legible? Do you either swear or affirm that to be true?
I swear.
All right, thank you, Mr. Mulholland. So with that, couple of notice housekeeping changes that we have to make for the record. Again, on the legal description, the plan number is being striked and we're replacing it with 413469.
We'd agree to that. I don't think there's an issue there.
All right. It looks like what happened was there was an extra 3 that got typed into it. So we're just removing a 3 in there, but we have to do it for the record.
No,
and then on amendment C, I think, and I may need Ms. Ramirez's help on this, but let me see how I can do first. My understanding is that for C, the way that we're going to allow this to read is, and I'll read it out to you, and then Mr. Mulholland, you can confirm, and Ms. Ramirez, if I'm wrong, you can correct. All right, so to permit a rear yard setback of 24.9% of the lot area or 6.83 meters, whereas the bylaw requires a minimum rear yard setback of, and now we're striking 28% of the lot depth or 76.4 meters. And instead we're going to let it read, excuse me, 25% of the lot depth or 6.86 meters. Is that correct? Ms. Ramirez, did I get that one right?
Yes, you did in the first sentence note lot area, but it's lot depth. But yes, you did get that correct.
All right. Well, thank you for mentioning that, because at least we know that for the record now. Mr. Mulholland, you're in agreement?
Yeah, we have no objection to that change.
Excellent. All right. Not looking for a presentation from you either, Mr. Mulholland, this evening. So I'm opening it up to questions from Ms. Markovich or Mr. Hindle. All right. With that, then, I have no one on my speakers list. Is there anyone in the audience who'd like to speak either for or against this application? Now is your chance. You just need to raise your hand. All right, I'm not seeing anybody come forward. So with that, all those in favor of the application? All right, so Mr. Mulholland, the application is unanimously granted.
Thank
you very much. All right, thank you. Enjoy the rest of your evening.
You as well.
Okay. That brings us to last but not least, applications 11 and 12. Looking for Mr. Segreto once again.
Am I there?
Yes, you are. You're there.
Okay.
That didn't take long. Wasn't too later in the evening. Just
Okay.
let me read the declaration here for you. So, do you solemnly swear or affirm that the notice provided to you as part of the application process and by the committee was posted first at the property to which the application applies? Secondly, that it was there for the prescribed number of days before the hearing. And thirdly, that the sign was clearly visible and legible for the entirety of that time. Do you either swear or affirm that to be true?
I swear.
All right, thank you, Mr. Segreto. We will be asking for a presentation on this. We understand that the application was before us in December of 2020. Part of the reasons, there was a number of reasons why there was an adjournment. One of them, though, is very much in relation to the neighborhood consultation. It was to give an opportunity for that, and I can't remember exactly what the other issues were, but in any event, oh, and just on that, before you go, Mr. Segreto, into your presentation, I believe there's a legal description amendment required. And it is to make reference to Part 2 on Plan 4R 3613. Is that correct?
I believe it is. Part 2?
Yeah, Part 2 on Plan 4R 3613.
36613, that's correct.
All right, okay. All right, so I think we're looking for a presentation, Mr. Segreto, so please walk us through both the severance and the minor variances.
If I may then, Madam Chair, if we can go to the coordinator, as you can see, that's a streetscape of the proposed development that my clients would like to do. They would like to do 3 individual lots there. The one on the right-hand side is a lot that was severed a few years ago, and that house has been built. So what we have in front of you is an application for minor variance for lot area on all 3 parcels for parts 1, 2, and 3, which are variances A, B, and C. And the variances are to reduce the lot area to 309.6 square meters for A and B, and 309.3 square meters for C. If you can go to the site plan, maybe we can see the variances on the site plan. Yeah, there you go. So those are the variances. Part 1 and 2 are identical, and 3 is just slightly less on area. So that was one of the issues. We did not have a great deal of dialogue with the community. There were a couple of letters that were sent in, and there was some concerns with respect to some of the drainage, some of the parking, and I guess overdevelopment in this particular area. At the last time that we talked, I talked with my clients as well. They felt that the community was not in any way going to support these 3 lots, nor would they even support 2. They were under the understanding that 1 lot would be sufficient. And I don't think there was any movement on either part, either on my client's part or on the community part as well. So there was not a lot of dialogue on that. So we decided to reapply to the committee as filed. And there was some concerns about a tree on part 3, which is out in the front, which is a white pine. There was no tree report. Since then, we did do a tree report. There's a tree report on file. There were some concerns with the root systems possibly being affected. So what we did was we decided to revise the front porch. There's no concrete porch there anymore. There's a wood porch there with sonotubes that would give the tree a little bit more breathing room. In addition to that one, that would be tree number 1. Tree number 3, I believe, is in behind part 3 near the letter C there. You'll see there's a tree somewhere around there. There were some concerns about that tree as well, but I think the arborist has asked us to protect it, and I think that one will be fine. The other trees on the site will all be okay. Can you go to the next slide, please? Those are the 3 parts that we're looking at. Part 1 was the original one on the corner is a single family dwelling, which is there already. Parts 1, 2, and 3 are identical, more or less. So that's just the art plan indicating the newly created lots if we're successful. Next slide, please. Okay, so here's a little bit of the lot fabric in the area. As you can see, the red parcel of land is the subject property, which is the 9.8 meters that we have in frontage. And obviously we're a little bit short in area. The blue ones you can clearly see are the ones that are almost directly behind us. And that would be the new home that was constructed and approved approximately 2 years ago by the committee. And that 1355 Morley has a frontage of 10.64 meters. And the other one right next door to it, I think it's 1357, has a frontage of 8.5 meters. And the areas for those are very similar to what we have in front of you here today. I believe that the areas for 1355 are 329.8 square meters. And I think we're applying for 309. And for 1357, it's 330.5 square meters. And again, we're at the 309.6. So they're very similar, almost identical to what was approved a few years ago. And then you can see the other lots that have been developed in that area. The ones in green indicate lots ranging anywhere from 13 meters to 14, 15 meters. So that gives you some sense of what's going on in this neighborhood and what has happened over the last couple of years. Next slide, please. Now, if you look at this, with respect to the bylaw that we have in front of us here, the zoning bylaw, which allows 9-meter frontage, which we're providing, but we need 555 square meters. The last time we talked about this, Mr. White and I had discussed this, not in great detail, but he asked the question as well, and he needed some feedback, I guess, from the committee as well with respect. If we were to have a 9-meter wide frontage, essentially, we would need to have a depth of 56.7 meters. And you can clearly see how deep these lots would have to be in order to have 555 square meters to meet the lot area. So this is very difficult to achieve. So there's something wrong here that just doesn't fit. It doesn't fit because all these lots are like around 100 feet in depth, 30 meters in depth there. Next slide, please. So here again, we have the 3 lots. Tree number 1 is that white spruce tree that we're protecting, and we're showing the wood deck there. And then you have tree number 2, which is a little bit further back. And then tree number 3 is the one that they had a little bit of concern with respect to the root system, which we'll protect as best we can. And then tree number 4, 5, and 6, there's no impact whatsoever on this. So essentially that's where I'm at on this file right now. I'm open to questions.
All right, thank you, Mr. Segredo. I just want to make one comment though about the zoning requirement for that special exception for 550 square meters. It actually is like that in a number of different neighborhoods throughout the city. My own neighborhood was the same way. We had 9-meter frontages, but the lot area was exactly the same. And I think, you know, the committee has actually seen a number of other neighborhoods come forward with exactly the same requirement. So my issue, the problem, Mr. Segredo, when I see something like that is, once it's a mistake, but when it's repeated throughout the city, a number of different neighborhoods, is it really a mistake? At that point, it's more of a general zoning provision matter. So it means that the city needs to be relooking at that in a more holistic way rather than starting to piecemeal these neighborhoods. Doesn't make sense. It's better to look at the standard across the board and then see what to do about it. So all that to say, you're in good company in this neighborhood with it happening throughout the city in different pockets. So, okay, I'm going to open it up to the members of the committee for questions at this point. Mr. Hindle.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Segredo, I'm curious, looking at the lot fabric evidence that you provided, there's only, from my understanding, 2 lots that are in the 9-meter range. And in that case, I think for that specific pair of lots, those are semi-detached, which is not a permitted use in this R1 zone. So can you tell me how based on that, you would argue that 9-meter lots are considered to be within and fitting within the intention and the zoning for this area?
The blue lots directly behind on Morley are identical to what we have. The ones that are further up can't really see the name of the street, but the ones on top of the page, if you go to the lot fabric map, I believe you may be right on those. They may be semis, but there are a couple of other singles in that area there that are 9 meters. There isn't a great deal, okay? I'll admit to it, but there are some. And the fabric is different in there. There are big lots, there are small lots. There are lots that are, as I indicated, 9 meters, 11 meters, 13 meters, 15 meters. So it is a neighborhood a little bit in transition. There are some huge lots that you can see if you look where the two blue singles on Morley are. As you go towards the right, there's 3 other lots that have been severed there. And those ones there, I guess, are 13, 14 or 15 meters. Yes, these lots are a little bit smaller. You know what I mean? There's no ands and buts about it, but that's what it is. And this is the presentation that I have for you this evening.
Okay. Any additional questions, Mr. Hindle?
No, I think that's fine for now.
All right, Ms. Markovich, any questions?
Yeah, just a comment. So it does sound like, again, from that lotting fabric analysis, though, that the majority of new sort of severances have been more in that green coating. So the 13 point, I forget the dimensions you had up there, but sort of in that range, which would be, if we're looking at the subject property, would almost be equivalent to it consent divided into 2 as opposed to 3. Is that correct?
Are you asking me a question there? 2 to 3?
Yeah, I'm just confirming the.
Well, you know,
green,
2 lots, again, with the community, I don't think the community wanted to negotiate with my clients at all on the 2 lots. That was my understanding right from day one. And so my clients decided to go on the 3. 2 lots, yes, there's a possibility, but again, would the community support 2 lots? That's the question that I have. Would they support if we were to go back to the committee on the 2 lots? Also in the planning report, I was reading through the planning report, and my understanding is that the planning report, they didn't have any concerns with the consents. They did have some concerns with respect to the minor variance, but when it came to the consents, maybe Ms. Ramirez can elaborate on that a little bit. There were some concerns with the garages, with the new bylaw that had come into place, and that could easily be revised. We're getting away from the lots, but that was one concern that planning did have, was that the garages were at least not to project in front. They wanted the front door to project in front, but that can easily be attained. But my understanding is that planning didn't have any problems with the consents.
Mr. Segreto, I'm going to point you to page 6 of the planner's report under conclusion, and I'm reading the statement. It says, while the proposed built form is compatible, the proposed lots are out of sync with the existing lot fabric. 2 lots opposed to the proposed 3 would make more appropriate development of the subject property and better align with the general intent and purpose of the R1 zone, the R1 WW special exception zone.
Madam Chair, I agree with what you're saying there, and I see what you're saying there. All my clients are asking for basically is that they stressed it to me is, listen, the 2 units in behind us, there's no different with the 2 units that are behind us and what we're proposing this evening to the committee. They're identical basically to the units that are in behind us. That's all I have.
All right. But so just because I want to get this out there, Mr. Segreto, that when we look at compatibility, what's behind is it's relevant, but it's not as important as what's actually on the streetscape. And if you look at the lotting fabric, even by your own evidence, we don't see anything within the streetscape of the actual, Emerald Gate Avenue itself. So, okay. Any further questions, Ms. Markovich, Mr. Hindle? All right, I've got a number of questions and I'd like to speak with Ms. Young, if you could, please. There's a number of comments. So Mr. Segreto seems to have provided evidence this evening that he's revised the tree information report dated, since I guess April 19th, 2021. Or the comments in the planning report reflect some real concern still with some aspects. Can you please provide us with some insight into that, whether or not you've had a chance to see a revised plan? If you have, so we just need to understand it a little bit better.
Yeah. So today I did have some back and forth with Mr. Segreto, and he confirmed that the covered porch next to tree number 1 has been revised to have sonotube footings and a wooden porch rather than concrete. So I'm happy with that. I do still have major concerns about the driveway and how that is going to be constructed without damaging the roots of tree number 1. And I haven't seen detail on that in the tree information report. And I also note tree number 3, it says that it's being protected, but it looks to me like the excavation for the building is within that critical root zone as well. And so I don't have the detail in the tree information report at this stage to show me how that's going to be protected.
All right. So I guess, we've been talking a lot about the difference between 3 versus 2 lots. And I may be putting you on the spot, please let me know if I am, but in your opinion, would the trees that are of concern be salvageable or protectable if we removed one of the lots and only did 2?
I mean, it probably depends on what would be allowed on the 2 lots and what the required side yard setbacks would be, but I do feel like having fewer driveways in the front would allow the nearest driveway to be pulled further away from that pine tree, the one out the front. So I do feel like there would be less of an impact on that. I imagine the rear yard setback wouldn't change, so probably the impact to tree number 3 might be the same, but if the plan was to be revised, then perhaps that could be looked at and something changed around there.
All right, thank you, Ms. Young, for those comments. Okay, any further questions from the panel at this point? I do have a fairly lengthy speakers list. Just before we go there, though, Mr. Segreto, did you actually set up a meeting with the residents after the December 2020 meeting?
Madam Chair, normally I do, as you know, because I'm in front of the committee many, many times. But in this particular case, my clients were very adamant that they felt that there was no good dialogue with respect to this development with the community for whatever reasons, I don't know. And they said that they wanted to have this application heard as 3 parcels of land.
All right, thank you, Mr. Segreto. That's very fair, just to say it how it is. So that's good. Okay, so I've got 3 speakers on my list: Mr. Meehan, Ms. Kathy Johnson, and Ms. I'm going to say Delta Jones. So is there, before we do one at a time, I see Ms. Johnson, you've got your video on. Are you the spokesperson? Or can you, okay, so you can unmute. I'm going to give you the floor.
Right there.
There
Thank you very much. Hello, everybody. Yeah, I'm the spokesperson.
So let me just make one comment to the remainder of the speakers. I just want to be clear that so Ms. Johnson, you're acting as spokesperson, so you're going to get the bulk of the issues on the table, and then I'm going to ask everyone to if they've heard their concern, then it's on. We're taking notes, And if you could just add to the list rather than maybe repeat what's been said, that would be helpful for
That's
the.
what
for the
I'm going to
committee.
try. I'm going to try. There's some of them, I know kind of what they're going to say, so I'm going to avoid that. But as spokesman, I've gathered things from other people, and I'm trying to quickly. I sent you pictures. I've sent you, notes from and little comments from a lot of people, and I know Delta and Gary will be speaking as well. So I'm assuming you got everything we sent, right?
Yes, of course.
Okay, and the thing is too, I mean, it's been a long time since we talked. So as you said, you're not sure you can, you remember everything. And I wanted to comment about the tree report. I'm thankful that they're keeping the tree. But at the end of our last meeting in February, Mr. White even said, I don't think it's all about the tree. There are many more issues here besides the tree. We're thankful for the tree. However, I don't think they would be able to save the tree with building so close to it. The roots will be compromised. The tree will die in a year or two. And also the arms are protruding. They're going to hit the house. Somebody will probably cut it down or whatever. But anyways, we're surprised that the proposal is still being considered and that there was no changes made to the plans. We weren't contacted at all. No, there were no concessions in reducing any footage of the buildings after all this opposition to the plans. We do deserve quality housing to maintain the density and demographics of our neighborhood here. So I want to just quickly review the things from the prior meeting. One thing, our properties, used to be R1E estate properties, and they got reduced to R1WW. It's 555 square meters. So adding 4 houses to one property is reducing it by 45%. And that's not minor. So that's something we're worried about. 4 mandates are not met. It's not compatible. And Delta's going to talk about that. At the school buses at the intersection, I sent pictures last time of buses right in front of that house there. Many go across and around the corner and everything. Unsafe to have all these cars, small driveways. People can't fit 2 cars in that driveway. I sent you pictures of that before. There's no way having 5 driveways in a row. And I do know that most people have 2 cars. They can't fit 2 cars in the driveway. They'll be parking on the streets. And as someone sent us in pictures of Trappers Lane, which is around the corner, lineup of cars there every day and every night because there's no room to park in these areas. We don't want to see that on our streets. Also, because of the fact there's no room to put snow when you have driveways so close and so small. It's very unsafe. We have no sidewalks. People end up walking on the streets, biking. Little kids are on their little tricycles and stuff while we walk behind them. The cars will cause blind spots in that, and we don't need any trouble with that. Number 6 was the flooding issues due to the poor drainage. And we do have flooding 2 to 3 times a year here, coming from the bush, the NCC. And I even sent the pictures again from, that was Madeline Lee that submitted those. I'm assuming you guys read that, the Madeline Lee's, which she's been in touch with the city about the drainage and that. And I even sent you a picture of my grandson kayaking in the flooded field in the middle of March. So that happens 2 or 3 times a year. And petitions with over 240 signatures of people opposing this development, their voices need to be heard. In our last meeting, I sent pictures again of the housing of our neighborhood showing how it will not fit in, And I believe you were referring to Mr. Cameron Hodges' report from December, which I am bringing up here because he came and checked it out. He did the report and the recommendations. He's the one that said it's out of context with the surrounding area. He also said the lot is better suited for 2 proposed lots, better aligns with the general intent and purpose. Also stated the department has some concerns that the proposed lot areas will result in a built form, which is out of context for the surrounding areas. Thank you, Mr. Hodgson, for saying what we all know here, And reducing number of homes is the obvious conclusion, you know, to this, to supporting the mandates and everything. There's so many building projects going on. And apparently Serco, which is the same owners as this company, is doing a wonderful thing by turning a business property downtown into apartments. And that's the way to get more houses built, not ruining a neighborhood, you know. And one last thing here about how we believe the severance on Maury Street was improperly obtained. We cannot use that as precedent because apparently, as I sent you copies, we actually paid the city, got copies of that February 2019 submission with the approval of that property. And there was untruths in that report. There was a serious error on page 5. It says similar consent and minor variance applications had been approved by the committee for a property elsewhere on the street last year. That was never done. There's no similar properties. And as we said, Ridgedale Street with double units, that's not a single home. That doesn't count. And also the agents said that they did contact several neighbors and provided them with information of the proposal. I knocked on doors. 2 people were approached, given vague information, had no idea. The man that actually sold the property years ago said he got the thing in the mail 2 days before the meeting. So, and lastly, that was Mr. Serge Edmond. So we believe that was put through with false information. It should never have happened, and it certainly should not be used as precedent because there is no other place on there that has 8 meter frontage. So, and the other last thing. Yes.
Good. You're doing good, Ms. Johnson. Go ahead.
I'm trying to go so fast because there's so many people that submitted things. The last thing was somebody submitted these newspaper articles, how frustrated people are with all these development and squeezing it, using every square inch of properties and everything. But the last article from March 19, 2021 from the paper said, the city planning department is willing to soften plans for neighborhood intensification. So we do hope that they soften the plans for the neighbors, not for the developers, because we're the ones that have lived here for several years and are trying to keep it looking nice. We want, you know, it's overdone. 3 houses are overdone on that property. Did I fit it in 5 minutes?
Yeah, you did great. You did great. All right. I always tend to give a little more time anyway to the spokesperson. I'm going to keep the others to the 5, but when it's a spokesperson, the understanding is you are going to get all the issues on the table. So you did great. I'm going to go to Mr. Meehan. Well, just wait just a minute. Actually, any questions, Ms. Markovich or Mr. Hindle for Ms. Johnson before I move on to Mr. Meehan? No? All right. Go ahead then, Mr. Meehan. Oh, sorry, Mr. Meehan, you're on mute.
There we go. I'm content to go after Ms. Jones if that would suit the committee.
That's fine with me. Go ahead then, Ms. Jones.
Hi, my name is Delta Jones. I live in the newly constructed home, actually immediately adjacent to the property. I live with my husband and my 3 children, and we purchased the home in 2019. So that home that you saw in Mr. Segretto's photo. We purchased the home, our dream home in this neighborhood because we loved the neighborhood. We loved the character. We had long been keeping an eye on the real estate in this neighborhood. And I did want to start off by saying that both my husband and I are not against intensification. We're familiar with the city's official plan, and we agree with it. We see why it's necessary, but we do believe it needs to be approached with reason and balance. And I prepared a short presentation explaining why we believe this proposal is not reasonable. It's based on the 4 criteria set out by the city, which I know committee members are surely familiar with, so I won't spend too much time on it, but if I could get that presentation.
Actually, Ms. Jones, I think if you don't mind, could you just summarize your 4 points rather than to do a presentation? Normally, we just reserve the ability to do presentations to the applicant. So please go ahead.
Sure, no problem. I would like to say that we were not at all consulted, my husband or I. You know, we were, after the last meeting, we were expecting to be contacted, but we were definitely not consulted, and we were hoping to be consulted for sure. Even when we first purchased, or when we were debating purchasing the home, we were told that there would be 2 houses built next door, possibly even 1. So that was taken into consideration when we decided to buy the house. And certainly if we were told that there would possibly be 3, that would have been a major factor in our decision. And so while I know it's buyer beware when you buy a house, we do feel like that is relevant to this conversation. So the four tests laid out by the city, the first one being that the variance being requested is minor, and we've already discussed that it isn't. It's actually a reduction in lot size by 44%. The lot is actually not even technically big enough for 2 555 square foot lots. So the idea that we would build 3 on that land does not seem reasonable. The city's official plan talks about responsible, more efficient use of land, but also, you know, safe cycling and walking spaces. It also talks about things that just don't seem to line up with this proposal. So that was another important point we wanted to make, and also just the fact that it is not in line with the zoning that is for this area. Putting 4 houses, as Kathy said, where formerly there was 1, would really change the character of this neighborhood. It would not allow for the bicycling and the walking that happens now, and it is a big concern. We have 3 children of our own who are always out walking and bicycling. To add that many cars to our immediate area is very concerning to us, and not why we wanted to live in this neighborhood, to be honest. And again, we're not against intensification. We're just it's important that the land use be responsible and reasonable. And I think that's everything. And again, we weren't consulted, which was disappointing.
All right, thank you, Ms. Jones. Any questions from panel members to Ms. Jones? Okay, all right then, Mr. Meehan, I think we're ready for you.
Thank you, Chair. You can hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay. I had submitted some additional written comments on the 16th, and I would assume that the members of the committee have received those and reviewed them, so I'm not going to belabor a rehash of that. But I did think that there's a few things that I would like to speak to. One seems to be the entire issue of how this application was prepared. Obviously, what the applicant is requesting is simply very simply the one issue of the size of lot area. And goes into, in the cover letter that he has provided the committee, goes into a quite an extensive explanation of the reference guidance and statements of intent and that sorts of things with respect to how development or new development should proceed. And yet the element of lot area being 555 square meters in this particular case seems to be something that isn't given a great deal of attention. It was simply, we're coming up with this proposal and, you know, this is what the lot sizes will be, 309 square meters or thereabouts. And simply that, you know, there isn't anything specifically addressed towards the necessity for the reduction of lot size, when that would appear to be one of the things that the committee does in terms of, as an example, building height or size of backyards, those kinds of things. But there's no rationale that we can sort of look at and say, okay, well, that's why they want to do it. Clearly, then the only logical implication would be that, you know, they just want to have sufficient property there to put up three homes. I had sent the coordinator a PDF file with just there's one table, and if she could put it up, I would appreciate it, for Emerald Gate Avenue.
Can you tell us before we go there, Mr. Meehan, what the table's about?
It's just a table. It's a comparator data that I had put together from the Geo Ottawa site, and it illustrates frontages of all of the lots on Emerald Gate Avenue. It illustrates the lot areas, and and again, sort of as you had properly noted, there's absolutely no example on Emerald Gate Avenue of a 9-meter lot. The smallest lot area on Emerald Gate Avenue is the one that was created at 3875 Autumnwood, Mrs. Jones's home, at 438 square meters. The rest of them range in size from that to over 1,300 square meters. So again, there's quite a difference in moving from lot descriptions such as those to ones we're having suggested 9.87 and 9.88 meter frontages. And with respect to the, I'd like to comment on the 9-meter business. I mean, as I understand it, maybe somebody could correct me if they feel I'm wrong, but 9 meters is a standard placed in the bylaw, which dictates the absolute minimum frontage for the lots.
Yes,
and you can.
There's no request for a reduction in lot frontage in this case.
No, I understand that, but you know, the reason the requirement then becomes the overriding requirement becomes 555 square meters, which can easily be achieved simply by extending that 9 meters. And as Mr. Segreto has alluded to, lots on Maury Street, 1397, 1399, and 1401, those have lot frontages very similar to the lot frontage at 3875 Autumnwood, and have lot areas of 460 square meters, which is very, again, if the proposal were modified and made 2 lots, they would have 469 square meters, which again was a much better sense of conformity with the way development seems to be going, with the exception of those 2 lots on Maury Street at 1355 and 57.
So Mr. Mayor, can I ask you a quick question before we go? Okay, so in order to come up with that 469 square meters, you essentially took the same frontage, you divided it by 2, and then you took the lot depth and did the math. Is that how you came up with that 469?
That's right.
All right, perfect. Because I was going to ask staff, but if you've already done it and you can confirm that's what you did, then I'm okay.
Well, that is what I did. And you know, the source was that Geo Ottawa information. They have lot area, which actually is illustrated and gives those numbers. So that's how I had come up with those numbers. So in terms of the other comparators, I mean, I wasn't going to spend a great deal of time in doing that, but if it's going to be influential, then I will talk to it. Ms. Johnson has talked about the concerns around 1355 and 57 Morey Street. And I perhaps give a little bit more latitude to the members of the committee in the way the statement might have been interpreted by them, that was given by the presenter.
So, Mr. Mann, for those lots, it's not that it's not relevant. It's just that this committee is bound to considering this application on the merits of the information before us today and the merits of what's being proposed for this. We're not bound by precedents. We're not bound by any of that. So whatever the story was for that, we can't speak to it. It's not something we were involved in. What we wanted to really deal with properly is what's before us now. So we don't really need, like, all I'm saying is we just, as much as I can understand there might have been some errors made for whatever reason, that's not something that is going to be helpful to us, not really.
I'm content with that, so long as that, it doesn't, Mr. Segredo seemed to be leaning very heavily on that as a reference for explaining his application. So your position is certainly understood, and thank you for that. And then on other streets, I mean, on my information that I had provided you, the written comments, it actually illustrates in there the addresses that Mr. Segredo has provided as comparator data. And yes, the range of frontages is certainly as he's illustrated. But again, the size lot area, which is a concern that we all have right now, is very close to that 460 square meter range. And if you look at that, in my opinion anyway, it would be not unreasonable in terms of interpreting that as a minor variance, as opposed to one that would consider 44 or 45% reduction in the required space. Can
I give you about another minute, Mr. Mann?
Okay. Then specific to Emerald Gate Avenue, I mean, the frontages for the existing properties, again, I had spoken to that already, was 14, the minimum was 14.3. The property owned by 3875 Autumnwood, owned by Claymore. Again, same thing with the minimum lot area was 438.33. There's only one other lot on the street, which is less than the 555 square meters. The current inventory of homes on the street is 26. The average lot area of the 26 homes is 743 square meters. The cumulative frontage along all of them, Emerald Gate Avenue, both sides, would be 618 meters. And the average frontage per lot is 23.8. So the effect of approving the variance application would establish a standard which ignores the lot area provision of the zoning bylaw and establishes 9-meter frontage as the primary criteria relative to lot size approval. The effective exclusion of the zoning bylaw provision for 637 is that the number of lots that could ultimately be approved based upon applications for minor variance would rise from the current 26 to an excess of 68. Assuming.
Okay. I'm giving you can you conclude at this point?
I can. If you could just give me about a minute then. Assuming an average of 2 vehicles per home, the vehicular traffic on Emerald Gate would increase by 136 vehicles opposed to the current 52. Population would, assuming 4 people per home, would go from 104 to 272. So all that
to deal with the application that's before us. So I understand, you did a lot of good analytics, but that's not, we can't actually take that information into consideration because it's not on the table. Could it be in a worst case scenario and we would allow all of that to happen? Yes, but that's not how it actually tends to unfold in neighborhoods. So, I think you've made your point. I think you made a great point. And that is that if we're not careful, it could become much more greater impact, obviously, than what we're talking about with one application. So we do hear you on that. So there is some cause for concern.
I'd just like to mention the business of the proposal or possibility of 2 homes. That was never discussed with any of us. The discussions that I've had and information shared amongst neighbors in the area indicates that everybody is very clearly aware of the need for intensification and infill, and that the 2-home proposal would be something that we would certainly consider as being viable. So Mr. Segretto's mention of that is appreciated, but I think it's very clear that the reason this application is going ahead is very clearly as a result of Claymore Homes having taken the position that they want to have 3 lots as their objective. So nobody supports that in our neighborhood, and we would certainly look to the committee for their support in perhaps asking for a variation of that application.
All right, thank you, Mr. Meehan. Before I'm going to open it up, so don't go away because I might, the panel members may have a question. But I did note, Ms. Ramirez, you had your hand up earlier, and I have a feeling you wanted to make a clarification.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, I did. I just wanted to provide the information that Geo Ottawa is not 100% accurate. It gives a rough guide, but it's not 100% accurate. We rely on plans of survey for definitive numbers. And if the lot were to split into 2 as opposed to 3, the lot area for those lots would be 464 square meters. So I just wanted to give a little bit of caution to not completely rely on Geo Ottawa as being 100% accurate.
Perfect. I would have wanted to get that information from you. So excellent. Okay, with that, Ms. Markovich, Mr. Hindle, any questions for Mr. Meehan? All right, okay. That concludes my list. I'm going to make a call out to anyone else who might be in the audience. If you would like to add any additional concerns to what the panel has heard, now's your chance. You can raise your hand, and you can always speak in support of the application as well. I'm going to give a couple of seconds for anybody who might want to come forward. All right, I'm not seeing any additional speakers come forward, so we're gonna close the public hearing portion on this application at this point. And committee members, I believe it's our turn to deliberate any additional issues that you'd like to discuss, or do you want to go to a vote? We can go to a vote on the consent and on the minor variance applications. Okay, gonna go to a vote. So, on the consent application, all those in favor? All right, so for the record, I too am opposed to the consent application. So it's unanimous. So the consent application is denied. On the minor variance application, all those in favor? So it's unanimous at this point. The application for minor variance is unanimously denied as well. Mr. Segretto, I think your client, if they're listening in, heard very clearly what the neighborhood is saying. about this proposal. We agree, based on some of the comments we saw from staff, their concerns about its being out of sync with the lot fabric. I'm not compelled by the fact that there might be just, how strange, it's the 55 square meters, but still only 9-meter frontage. There's too much of that across the city for me to say that it's a one-off. So with that, the committee is denying the consent application because we do not believe that it is in keeping with the intent of intensification under the official plan policies, nor with the zoning bylaw. And we are also denying and committee members, you can pipe in here if I'm not getting this right, but also denying the minor variance applications, as again, we feel that it's not, in this case, minor or in keeping with the intent of the zoning bylaw.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I'll relate the message to my clients.
All right, thank you, Mr. Segreto, and thank you to everyone for coming forward and for taking all of the time that you have been taking to follow this application through and for joining us tonight once again. So with that, have a good evening, everyone. I would like to thank, before we leave staff though, I just want to thank our committee staff again, and special thanks again because to our planners and our foresters. So thank you, Ms. Ramirez, Ms. Cully, and also thanks Ms. Yen for being here this evening. We appreciate your support as always. And thank you, Madam Deputy Secretary Treasurer, for your support again tonight. With that, we'll see you in 2 weeks, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your evening.